After waiting 3 weeks for a ghost husband, a little girl asked, "Will you be my mama instead?" The sun hung low over the dusty horizon of Cora Prime, painting the desert landscape in shades of copper and orange. Tiny settlements dotted the endless dunes like forgotten crumbs of civilization, each one a stubborn monument to humanity's attempt to live among the stars. Merivale's boots crunched against the coarse sand as she guided her worn-out speeder through a narrow canyon. The wind carried a faint hum, the song of the desert whispering across the rocks. Mara had traveled this route many times before, carrying supplies and messages from one lonely outpost to another. Space freighters moved too slowly, and the official colony network had collapsed years ago. Mara preferred the quiet. She liked knowing that the only voices she would hear were the wind, the screech of desert birds, and the occasional voice on her radio. Today, however, the canyon felt different. A thin mist clung to the rocks, unusual for a desert planet. Mara's horse-like bio-steed, a sleek creature with metallic hooves and soft synthetic fur, snorted nervously. She patted its neck. "Easy, Ciro. Just another empty homestead." Nothing to worry about. The homestead came into view, a small structure of pale metal and wood half buried in sand. Its windows were dark, dusty, and unwelcoming. The door hung slightly ajar. Mara's brow furrowed. It had the same design as the standard frontier shelters, but it had been abandoned for years. Or at least, that's what the old map suggested. She dismounted, letting Ciro graze on the sparse desert scrub. Mara's eyes scanned the house. There were strange patterns etched into the walls, glowing faintly in the dying sunlight. Tiny wires snaked along the corners of the structure. Whoever had lived here had left in a hurry, or maybe they had never left entirely. Inside, the house smelled of old wood and faint electronics. Dust swirled in golden beams of sunlight that crept through the cracks in the roof. Mara's boots echoed on the floorboards. She had just started examining the control panel beside the door when she heard a soft voice. "Who are you?" Mara froze. The voice was small and trembling, almost shy. She turned slowly. In the corner, a little girl peeked out from behind a torn curtain. Her dark eyes were wide, full of curiosity and something else Mara couldn't place. "I'm Mara," she said carefully, keeping her tone calm. "I'm just passing through." The girl blinked. "Are you here to see him?" "See who?" "The husband. Mama's husband. He said he would come back." The girl's words were quiet, almost a whisper, yet they seemed to fill the room. Mara studied the child, noticing the dirt-smudged dress and the scuffed shoes. There was a sense of loneliness about her, as if she had been waiting a long time for something, or someone. "How long have you been waiting?" Mara asked gently. 3 weeks, the girl said without hesitation. She tugged at the corner of her dress. "He said he would come back, but he hasn't yet." Mara nodded slowly, unsure what to say. She had encountered plenty of strange things on the frontier. Rogue AI, experimental bots, even the occasional holographic ghost, but never a child talking about a ghost husband. "You must be tired of waiting," Mara said. "Do you have food?" The girl shook her head. "There's some, but not much. I've been careful. Mama said he would come back soon, so I can't waste anything." Mara crouched down to the girl's level. "Where's your mama now?" The girl's lips trembled. "I'm waiting for him instead." Mara's chest tightened. There was no malice in the child's voice, only hope, the kind of hope that made a person hold on to thin air. There were signs of technology. Old holographic projectors, faintly glowing circuits embedded in the floor, and strange wires running along the walls. Whoever this husband was, he wasn't human in the usual sense. "Can you show me where he comes back?" Mara asked. The girl's eyes lit up. "Follow me." She led Mara to a small room at the back of the house. In the center, a faint glow flickered, like a candle caught in the wind. Mara squinted. It wasn't fire. It was light, hovering in the air, flickering softly, almost alive. "That's him?" Mara asked, careful not to startle the child. "Yes," the girl said. "He comes every night. He can't stay long, but he says he's coming back soon." He promised. Mara stepped closer, heart pounding. The glow shifted and flickered like a hologram. There was no shape she could define, only a shimmer of something human-shaped. And yet, there was intelligence there, recognition. It felt alive, even if it wasn't flesh and blood. "How long has he been doing this?" Mara asked. The girl shrugged. 3 weeks. He told me Mama would come too, but I think maybe Mama isn't coming. Her voice broke slightly. Mara felt a tug in her chest. She had drifted through life, moving from one settlement to another, never staying anywhere long enough to care. And yet here she was, standing in a dusty desert home, staring at a child waiting for a ghost who might never return. Maybe I can stay for a little while, Mara said slowly. Just until he comes back, or until we figure this out. The girl's face lit up, a smile breaking through the gloom. Really? Really? Mara said. That night, Mara set up her small cot in the corner of the room. Cyro slept outside, his soft whinnies blending with the desert wind. The little girl curled up on the threadbare rug, her eyes darting toward the flickering light every few seconds. Mara watched the glow as well. There was something almost comforting about it, though she couldn't explain why. She wondered how someone or something could promise to return, and how a little girl could wait so faithfully. Hours passed. The wind outside howled across the sand dunes, and the twin moons rose in the sky, casting pale silver light across the desert. The glow shifted and shimmered, moving like a ghostly dancer in the corner of the room. And then, as the hours crept closer to midnight, the light pulsed brighter, almost as if it were aware Mara was watching. The little girl whispered, "He said he'd come tonight." Mara smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from the child's face. "Maybe he will." For the first time in years, Mara felt a strange sense of belonging. Not just in this house, not just on this desert planet, but here, in the presence of a child who believed in something impossible. It was fragile, but it was real. And Mara, who had always been a drifter, realized that maybe waiting for something, or someone, wasn't such a waste of time after all. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, mysterious and unyielding. Inside, a little girl and a wandering star rancher waited together, hearts tethered to a promise of light and hope. When the first shimmer of the ghost pulsed again, Mara caught her breath. She didn't know what it meant, or whether the husband would truly return, but for the first time she felt that maybe the frontier had something new to offer. Not loneliness, but connection. The night was long, and the desert was silent, but Mara stayed awake. And in the quiet, with the soft glow of something she could barely define, she thought she might have found the beginning of a new story. The morning sun rose over Cora Prime, painting the desert in pale gold. Mara Vale stirred in her small cot, careful not to wake the little girl. Etta, as the child had introduced herself, was already awake, sitting by the flickering glow in the corner of the room. She traced the edges of the light with tiny fingers, whispering softly to it as if it were a friend. Mara rubbed her eyes and watched her for a moment. The desert air smelled faintly of sand and metal, the smell of the frontier. Mara had seen many things during her travels, malfunctioning bots, abandoned settlements, and even a few old holograms, but nothing like this. The husband wasn't a robot, not really, not exactly. He was something in between, something that shouldn't exist, and yet did. "Good morning, Etta," Mara said gently. "Did he visit last night?" Etta shook her head. "Not really. He shimmered, but he couldn't stay. He says he's trying to get back." Her voice was calm, but there was a hint of worry. 3 weeks, Mara. 3 weeks he's been trying." Mara nodded, feeling a pang in her chest. 3 weeks of waiting, and the little girl had barely complained. Most children would have given up or cried, but Etta held on, patient and quiet. There was something extraordinary in that. "Maybe I can help," Mara said carefully. "Do you know how he comes back, or why he can't stay?" Etta shook her head again. "Mama told me it's complicated. Something about the place where he went. He's in a kind of light, but he wants to be with me. He said he tried, but he couldn't finish." Mara's brow furrowed. "Tried? Finish what?" The girl shrugged, biting her lip. "I don't know. He said it's like trying to cross a river that isn't there. Something broke." Mara frowned, thinking. A river that wasn't there. It sounded like some old digital signal. Something she had encountered once while delivering messages to the edge of the colony network. She stepped closer to the flickering light, studying its movements. It pulsed softly, almost like it was breathing. Mara reached out a hand, careful not to touch it too closely. Her fingers felt warmth, but no solid form. "You can hear him?" Mara asked. Etta nodded. "He talks to me. Only me." Her eyes were wide. "He told me stories last night, about the stars, about other worlds, about people who lived before we came here. I like hearing him talk." Mara smiled softly. "He's lucky to have someone who listens." The girl tilted her head. "I wish I could touch him." Mara's chest tightened. She had spent years running from people, from attachments, from anything that made her stop and stay. And yet here she was, standing in a dusty house on a desert planet, drawn to a child who believed in something impossible. Maybe we can figure out why he can't stay, Mara said. Would you like that? Etta nodded eagerly. Yes! Please. The day passed in a quiet rhythm. Mara examined the room and the technology scattered around it. Wires snaked along the walls, glowing faintly in patterns she didn't recognize. Panels of metal flickered with static light. It wasn't ordinary frontier tech. Whoever had lived here had been trying to bridge something beyond the physical world. Mara knelt beside one of the panels. Tiny symbols blinked across the screen. Etta, do you know who built these? The girl shook her head. Mama didn't say. She only said he's special. He can do things normal people can't. Mara's fingers danced across the panel. She wasn't a tech genius, but she knew enough to follow circuits and signals. The patterns reminded her of something she had once delivered. Old Echo Men archives, programs designed to store human consciousness in digital form. Her heart skipped a beat. Could this ghost husband be one of them? Etta, can you ask him, did he ever live here in a normal body? Mara asked quietly. The girl closed her eyes, whispering softly. After a moment, she opened them. He says yes. He lived here. He took care of me when Mama went away. He tried to stay, but he got lost. He wants to come back, but he can't. He's stuck in the light. Mara felt a shiver run down her spine. A human mind trapped in light. A consciousness unable to fully return to a body. It made sense, in a strange, frontier kind of way. That explained the pulses, the shimmer, the way the child could hear him but nobody else could. I think I understand, Mara said slowly. He's part of the old colony experiments, isn't he? The Echo Men programs? Etta tilted her head. Maybe... I don't know, Mara nodded. That's okay. We'll figure it out together. The rest of the afternoon passed in quiet investigation. Mara repaired old circuits, reconnecting wires and checking panels. Etta followed her everywhere, asking questions about the lights, the stars, and sometimes just about Mara herself. Why did you come here? Etta asked suddenly. Mara paused, dark eyes full of trust. I was traveling. I didn't have anywhere to go, but now I think I might. Etta smiled softly. You can stay. He would like that. I think he likes you already. The word struck Mara more than she expected. She had spent years drifting across planets, avoiding attachments, avoiding care. And now a little girl was telling her she was needed. As the sun began to set, Mara noticed the glow flicker in the corner again. It was brighter now, more defined, almost like it was trying to speak. Etta whispered to it, and Mara watched in fascination as the shimmer pulsed rhythmically. He's saying something, Mara said. Etta nodded. He says he wants to see the stars again. He wants to go home, but he can't leave me. Mara's heart ached. She understood. The ghost wasn't dangerous or evil. He was trapped, caught between two worlds, unable to fully return or fully let go. I think we can help him, Mara said. Maybe we can find a way for him to rest, or to come back in some way. Etta's eyes widened. Really? You can? Mara smiled gently. We'll try. Together. Night fell over the desert. The twin moons rose in the sky, casting silver light across the dunes. Mara and Etta sat by the flickering glow, eating the small rations the girl had saved. Mara watched as the light pulsed almost like a heartbeat, while Etta whispered softly to it. I think he likes it when I talk about the stars, Etta said. He says the stars are lonely without people to watch them. Mara chuckled softly. I think he's right. For a long time the two sat in silence, listening to the soft hum of the glow and the whispering wind outside. Mara realized that for the first time in years she didn't feel alone. She had a purpose, small but real. She had a child who needed her and a mystery that needed solving. Hours passed, and the shimmer in the corner began to fade, dimming until it was just a soft glow. Etta yawned and leaned against Mara's shoulder. Will he come back tomorrow? She whispered. Mara stroked her hair gently. We'll see. Maybe. But for now, we wait. The night stretched on, quiet and vast, with the desert wind carrying soft whispers across the dunes. Mara looked at the little girl, fast asleep, and then at the shimmer of light that hovered in the corner. She didn't know what the future held, or how they could bring the ghost back, or let him go. But she knew one thing. She wouldn't leave. Not now. Not ever. Somewhere in the flickering light she sensed a pulse of gratitude, or perhaps understanding. Mara couldn't be sure. She only knew that, for the first time in a long time, she was exactly where she was meant to be. And in the quiet, with the twin moons above and the desert stretching endlessly, Mara and Etta waited together, watching, listening, and hoping for the impossible. The desert night on Cora Prime was still, the twin moons casting silver light across the dunes. Mara Vale sat outside the homestead, Cyro grazing quietly nearby while Etta lay on a blanket beside her. The soft glow from the little ghost in the corner of the room pulsed faintly, visible even through the open window. Mara could hear Etta whispering, her small voice carried on the wind. "I miss him," the girl said, her words almost lost in the hum of the desert. Mara's heart tightened. "I know," she said softly. "You've been waiting a long time." Etta nodded. Her dark eyes were wide as they turned toward the sky. "He promised." "He said he would come back, but I don't think he can." Mara frowned, staring at the soft shimmer inside the house. The ghost husband, or whatever he truly was, had not fully returned in 3 weeks. And now Mara could see the strain in the light. It flickered unevenly as if it were losing energy. She remembered the old frontier data she had studied the day before, the Echomen programs. Digital consciousnesses created to preserve human minds, trapped between worlds, unable to move back to a physical form if their signal broke. This was what they were dealing with. Mara exhaled. "Etta, I think he's trying. But he can't come back the way he promised." The little girl's face crumpled. She tried to speak but couldn't. Her tiny hands fisted the blanket. Mara could feel the weight of disappointment settle over her like a heavy cloak. "I'm sorry," Mara said, crouching down beside her. "I know it's hard, but sometimes even people who try really hard can't do what they want. That doesn't mean they don't care about you." Etta blinked. "But he said he would come back." And I waited. I counted every day. Mara nodded slowly. "I know you did. And that's brave. I'm proud of you for waiting. But sometimes, even the bravest hearts can't change what's already happened." The child's lip trembled. Mara reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Listen to me, Etta. I'm not leaving. I'll stay with you. We'll find a way through this together." Etta sniffled, but her eyes found Mara's. "You really mean that?" "Yes," Mara said firmly. "I mean it." The next day, Mara worked on the old circuits and holographic projectors, trying to strengthen the signal. She traced wires through the walls, checked the panels, and adjusted the ancient equipment that had kept the husband alive as a light form. Etta watched her with fascination. "Do you think he's happy?" the girl asked. Mara paused. "I think he's trying, and that counts for something." Etta nodded, seemingly satisfied. Then, after a pause, she said, "Do you think he knows I'm scared?" Mara smiled gently. "I think he knows. You've been talking to him every day. He can hear your heart." The little girl hugged herself tightly. Mara could see the layers of fear, hope, and longing that had built up over 3 weeks. It wasn't just waiting for a promise, it was waiting for someone to stay. By evening, the shimmer in the corner began to flicker more violently. Mara leaned closer. "He's trying to speak," she murmured. Etta stepped beside her. "What is he saying?" Mara listened carefully. The light pulsed and flickered, sending soft waves through the air, almost like Morse code. Slowly she began to recognize patterns, fragments of words, emotions carried as pulses of energy. "I think he's saying goodbye," Mara whispered. Etta's eyes widened. "Goodbye? But he promised he would come back." Mara sighed. I know he did. But sometimes promises can't be kept. Not because they don't care, but because some things are bigger than anyone can fix." The little girl's body shook as she hugged Mara. "But I don't want him to go." "I know," Mara said, holding her tightly. "I don't want him to go either, but we can make it easier. We can help him rest." For hours they sat together, waiting. The light shimmered and pulsed, flickering faster and brighter than ever before. Mara could sense the ghost's presence, his longing, his sadness, and his care for Etta. He wasn't just a memory. He wasn't a trick. He was real, in a way that mattered. Finally, the light began to stabilize. Mara studied the signals carefully. She realized that the only way the ghost could stay was to release himself from the fragile circuits that trapped him. If they didn't do it, the signal would collapse, and Etta would lose him forever, but the child's presence might remain in her memory, a bond stronger than light. Mara knelt beside Etta. Etta, I think he needs you to let him go. He can't come back the way he promised, but he wants you to be safe. He wants someone to stay with you. The child's eyes filled with tears. Let him go? Yes, Mara said softly. It doesn't mean you'll forget him. It just means you won't wait for something impossible anymore. He cares about you, but he can't stay. Etta's small hands clutched Mara's shirt. Then, will you stay with me instead? She whispered. Mara froze. The words hung in the air like the twin moons above. She hadn't expected this. She had come to help, to understand, to witness. And yet, looking at the little girl, desperate for someone to care for her, Mara felt something shift deep inside. Mara began, her voice soft.
She swallowed hard.
Yes, I will. Etta's face lit up. Really? Really? Mara said firmly, smiling through the tears in her own eyes. The glow pulsed one last time, brighter than before, almost like a smile. Mara watched in awe as the ghost sent one final message to the little girl. Etta listened carefully, whispering back softly. Mara didn't need to understand the words. She understood the meaning. Farewell, love, and trust. The shimmer faded completely. Mara reached out and took Etta's hand. He's gone, she said gently. But you're not alone anymore. Not now, not ever. Etta nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I think I understand. Mara pulled her close, feeling the weight of the little girl's arms around her. She realized that she wasn't just staying for Etta, she was staying for herself too. She had wandered the frontier for years, drifting between planets and settlements, never belonging anywhere, and now she had a purpose, a place, a family, small, fragile, but real. Over the next few days, Mara helped Etta adjust. They cleaned the homestead, repaired circuits, and explored the desert around the house. Etta still spoke softly to the empty corner where the light had been, but the sadness had eased. She talked about the stars, about the future, about everything she wanted to see and do. Mara listened, guiding her gently, and sometimes she found herself telling stories too, about distant planets, old adventures, and the things she had learned on the frontier. For the first time in years, Mara didn't feel the urge to leave. She didn't want to. The desert was vast, but she had found a place that mattered. She had found someone who needed her, and in turn she needed them too. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the dunes, Mara and Etta sat outside, wrapped in blankets. The desert stretched endlessly before them, silver and quiet. Do you think he's happy now? Etta asked softly. Gazing at the stars, Mara smiled. Yes, I think he's happy. He knew you would be safe, and that's what matters most. The little girl leaned against her, whispering, I'm glad I have you now. Mara held her close. Me too, Etta. Me too. And in the quiet, beneath the endless sky, Mara realized that some promises weren't about returning. They were about finding someone to stay. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't running. She was home. The desert was still and quiet, but Mara didn't feel lonely. She had Etta, and together they would face whatever the frontier had in store. And somewhere in the shimmer of memory, the ghost husband smiled, knowing that the little girl he cared for would never be alone again. The desert morning on Cora Prime was quiet, the sun spilling soft gold over the dunes. Mara Vale stepped outside, her boots crunching on the coarse sand. Ciro, her loyal bio-steed, stretched and shook his metallic mane, eyes alert to the wide-open desert. Etta ran ahead, small feet kicking up tiny clouds of dust, laughing as she chased a flurry of wind-blown leaves. The homestead behind them had changed. The circuits Mara had repaired now hummed steadily, lights glowing gently in neat patterns along the walls. It was still a small house, simple and worn, but it felt alive again, warm and safe. Mara paused, watching Etta. The little girl's dark eyes sparkled with curiosity, and her smile was wide and bright. She no longer whispered to the empty corner where the ghost shimmered had once been. That shimmer was gone, dissolved into memory, leaving only love behind. Mara felt a tug in her chest. The last few days had been exhausting, emotionally, mentally, even physically, but she also felt something she hadn't felt in years: belonging. She had wandered the frontier for so long, drifting between settlements, never staying, never caring, and now she had found a home, a purpose, and a family she had chosen herself. Etta ran back to Mara, holding a small, worn notebook. Look, she said, opening it. On the pages were drawings, stars, planets, strange animals, and tiny stick figures with smiling faces. I drew the places we'll go. Mara smiled, taking the notebook. These are wonderful, she said, flipping through the pages. I think we can make some of these real.
Etta clapped her hands.
Will you take me to the stars? Mara chuckled softly. We'll see. First, we need to get the ship fixed. Inside the homestead, Mara checked the controls of her small speeder. Years of frontier drifting had made her skilled at repairs, but this ship had been neglected, parts missing or corroded by sand. She rolled up her sleeves, tools in hand, as Etta watched closely, offering small pieces and holding tiny tools too. You're good at this, Etta said, eyes wide. Mara smiled. I've done it a few times. Fixing things is part of surviving out here. Etta nodded, but then her eyes softened. I think fixing the ship is like fixing hearts, too. Mara paused. She studied the little girl's face, noting the innocence and wisdom mixed together. Maybe you're right, she said quietly. Maybe fixing machines isn't that different from helping people. For hours they worked together, laughing when things didn't fit, celebrating small victories when circuits aligned, and humming songs Mara had learned on her journeys. Slowly, Mara began to feel that life could be more than just drifting. It could be laughter, care, and connection. It could be home. As the sun began to set, Mara and Etta stood outside the homestead. The desert was painted in oranges and purples, twin moons rising softly above the dunes. Mara took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the day fade into the cool night air. Do you think he's happy now? Etta asked, looking at the stars. Mara nodded. Yes, I think he is. He made sure you would be safe, and that's the most important thing. Etta hugged Mara tightly. I miss him, but I'm not sad anymore. I have you. Mara's throat tightened. She hugged the little girl back, feeling a love she had never expected to find in the desert of Cora Prime. And I have you too, she said softly. For a long time they stood there, watching the stars blink and shimmer above. Mara thought of the ghost husband, the pulses of light, and the 3 weeks of waiting. She realized that the promise had not been about him returning. It had been about finding someone to care, someone to stay. And that promise had been fulfilled, in a way neither of them could have expected. The next morning, Mara and Etta prepared for a journey. The little girl packed her notebook, a few belongings, and a small blanket. Mara checked the speeder's circuits one last time. The engines hummed smoothly, ready to cross the desert and eventually reach distant settlements. As they mounted Ciro, Etta looked at the homestead one last time. Goodbye, house, she said softly. Thank you for keeping me safe. It's not really goodbye, she said. We can come back any time. But now we have a whole frontier to explore. With that, they rode across the dunes, Ciro's hooves clanging softly against the sand, the wind carrying their laughter and voices across the open desert. The twin moons glowed above, guiding them toward the unknown. Days passed in a gentle rhythm. Mara and Etta traveled across Cora Prime, stopping at small settlements to trade, gather supplies, and meet other frontier families. Everywhere they went, Etta's curiosity shone brightly. She asked questions about every plant, every animal, and every star she could see. Mara taught her about navigation, desert survival, and how to care for Ciro. At night, they would lie under the stars, Etta pointing out constellations she imagined, telling stories she had made up about planets and people. Mara would listen, smiling, and sometimes adding her own adventures. The desert was vast and endless, but they no longer felt small or alone. One evening, Etta asked, Do you think we'll ever see him again? Mara took a deep breath. Maybe in memories, she said softly. Or maybe in the stories we tell. He's part of you now, and he always will be. But you don't have to wait anymore. You have me, and we have each other. Etta nodded, satisfied. I like that. Weeks passed. Mara and Etta grew closer each day. The bond between them became stronger than the desert wind, steadier than the dunes themselves. Etta no longer spoke to the empty corner of the homestead in her mind. She still remembered the ghost, but she focused on the present, the laughter, the stories, the warmth of Mara's presence. Mara, too, felt herself changing. The frontier had taught her survival, independence, and courage. But love, care, and family were lessons she had never fully learned. Etta had taught her all of that, in the simplest ways. A smile, a question, a hug. One night, as they camped under the stars, Etta whispered, I think we're a real family now. Mara smiled, holding her close. Yes, she said, a real family. Months later, they returned to the homestead. It had been abandoned and lonely for years, but now it felt like home. Mara repaired it further, and Etta filled the rooms with drawings, small plants, and trinkets collected from their travels. The house glowed softly under the twin moons, alive with the echoes of laughter and warmth. Cyro grazed peacefully nearby. Mara watched him and then looked at Etta, who was busy drawing the night sky in her notebook. For the first time, Mara felt truly at peace. She had found more than a home. She had found someone who depended on her, someone who gave her life meaning. And somewhere far beyond the desert and the stars, the ghost husband, trapped in his shimmer of light, watched in memory or perhaps in the echo of the universe. He had fulfilled his promise in the only way he could, by guiding Etta to someone who could stay, someone who could love, and someone who would never leave her alone. Mara didn't speak of him much. She didn't need to. Etta remembered, and Mara remembered. And together they looked forward, hand in hand, to all the adventures the frontier could bring. The desert was vast, the stars endless, and the future unwritten. But Mara and Etta faced it together, their hearts tethered, their bond unbreakable. And that was enough. Beneath the twin moons, in the quiet glow of the desert, a new story had begun. One of laughter, discovery, hope, and family. For Mara Vale and little Etta, the frontier was no longer a place of loneliness and waiting. It was a place of beginnings, where love and care made even the coldest, emptiest desert feel like home. And somewhere in the wind, Mara thought she could almost hear the faint echo of a light, a ghost whispering farewell, and a silent blessing for the family that had been born from his promise. They rode on together under the vast sky into the infinite possibilities of the frontier and into a future full of hope.